I don't know about you, but in my daily work life, some days my colleagues and clients bring up VR a lot because it might help advance an experience we're creating, or because it's cool and they read about it somewhere. And I usually respond with the question, why? But in truth, I'd like a better response than that, and I'm really optimistic that our next two speakers are going to give me the right answer to that question and a whole lot more. Just going to give you a little background on both of them. Nolan Bushnell is a technology pioneer, entrepreneur, and engineer. He is often described as the father of the video game industry, and is best known to many as the founder of Atari Corporation and Chuck E. Cheese. In fact, over the past 4 decades, he has founded more than 20 companies. Nolan, as I know we are about to discover, enjoys motivating and inspiring others on topics of entrepreneurship, creativity, innovation, and education. He's been inducted into the Video Game Hall of Fame, the Consumer Electronics Association Hall of Fame, and was named one of Newsweek's 50 Men Who Changed America. Nolan's latest venture is Modal VR, an industrial-grade virtual reality platform combining cutting-edge hardware and innovative software to deliver a rugged and portable wireless solution for multiple users over large areas. In my research on Nolan, one of the most intriguing things I heard him say was this: for those of us who grew up on Star Trek, the holodeck has always been the gold standard. With Modal VR, I actually believe that we have the holodeck. Bruce Vaugh is a name familiar to many in the room in his previous role as Chief Creative Executive, Walt Disney Imagineering for the Walt Disney Company, where he led integrated creative teams at WDI, Disney Creative Entertainment, and WDI Research and Development to drive excellence in product development and innovation. The scope of Bruce's responsibilities there included theme park attractions, special effects, innovative theater experiences, and new business opportunities that leveraged invented and emerging technologies. Bruce has received several screen credits for feature films, including Star Trek V: The Final Frontier in 1989, so he and Nolan may have something to talk about there. And he led the R&D teams that received the awards for Pirates of the Caribbean, Battle for Buccaneer Gold, Stitch's Photophone, and Lucky the Dino. Bruce's new venture is as CEO of Dreamscape VR, Dreamscape Immersive, which uses the most advanced VR technologies to create an entirely new form of mainstream location-based entertainment. These two gentlemen are going to entertain us for the next hour or so with a conversation about how the future of VR is now, and there will be time for questions. I'll leave you with one last thought, which is a quote from Bruce that says, "The promise of VR has been greater than the reality until now. Dreamscape delivers on that promise to be actively transported into an alternate reality where you have experiences and interact with others as naturally as you would in our physical world." Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Nolan Bushnell and Bruce Vaugh.
Thank you. I spent at least 15 minutes trying to pick out my shoes today, and little did I know, I had no chance.
Well, this is an amusement park thing. You've got to up the ante just a little bit. Now, I could have done a lot worse. For example, these shoes can actually flash, and there's several different colors. So if you really want to irritate people, you just have them flash with janky colors. and everybody says, that's not that cool. Anyway.
Send Morse code.
Okay, we have to start with a joke. The past, present, and future walk into a bar. It was tense. Sorry about that. I didn't say it was a good joke.
Very true. So Nolan, I feel like we're going to interview him now. Actually, when they said you're going to be on stage with Nolan, I said, what do you need me for? First of all, I have to say it is an honor to be on stage with you, being the legend that you are. And I was talking to my brother this morning, and I said, I'm on stage with Nolan Bushnell. And he said, I don't know that name. My brother wouldn't. And I said, remember Pong, when Dad came home with Pong? My father hated TV. He thought it was going to rot our brains. But the minute Pong came out, he thought, this is it. Now they're going to learn dexterity. They're going to learn, how to collaborate together and all this stuff. And so, thank you.
Well, on another level, I'm kind of mad at you because you got the job that I wanted when I got out of college. Okay, I put myself through college working in an amusement park. We had the highest per caps game department in the business. And I actually took a pay cut starting as an engineer. But I felt that, a new, fresh engineering degree is not worth anything. And I could always go back and work in the amusement park business. I mean, I got a really good job offer from Marriott, who was building Great America in Chicago. And I had Silicon Valley, Chicago. So anyway, but my real ideal was I wanted to work for Walt Disney. I wanted to be I wanted to be an Imagineer. And I interviewed, and I thought I was a shoo-in. And they didn't want me.
Well, I would have hired you.
No.
And the irony of that is, too, that some people may know this here, but when I joined Imagineering, it was because a company owned by Brand Farron at the time got acquired. We had done some consulting on Tower of Terror, and I was on the East Coast at the time, and I was told by a Disney HR person who flew out there that you're going to go to California and be an Imagineer. And I said, that's not even a word. I don't even know what that is. I had never been to a Disney theme park as a kid. My father didn't believe in those either. We went to battlefields and museums, and so next thing I knew, I walked into this incredible place, and I thought it'd be a 3 to 5 year thing, and 24 years later, it was amazing. But now, and I recently left that just about a year ago. It was a point in my career where I felt like I had pretty much done, with the opening of Shanghai and the building of cruise ships and everything else, I'd pretty much done everything that I could possibly do as an Imagineer. It could go on forever, you could have fun forever, but I really wanted to sort of step out and see, out of the cocoon, I called it, the Disney cocoon, and see what was happening out in the real world here. And I thought I was going to take 2 years off until Kevin Wall and Walter Parks, who had just acquired the rights to a piece of technology that enables people to step into a virtual reality world, interrupted that at UCLA, and they gave me their card, said you should come check out this thing. And I said, I'm skeptical. I've looked at VR many times, but I stepped in, and I felt, wow, this is the moment. It truly is. The technology's there, the audience is ready, and you can really start telling stories in this medium now in a way that you couldn't before.
Totally agree with you. I mean, today, if you really look at what we are in the business of, it's creating synthetic experiences and highly produced experiences. Why do people go to an amusement park? They want a highly produced experience. I mean, my wife thinks that New Orleans in Louisiana is better than New Orleans Square at Disneyland, and I actually don't. I think that, and she says, well, it's most the Reader's Digest condensed version of New Orleans. I said, yeah, but it's cleaner and nicer and safer.
It's the ideal.
But anyway, it's great fun. But now we are at a golden age because there's massive disintermediation of disposable income away from things and towards experiences. So the demand is growing every year. I mean, by all the demographics, the millennials, they don't want to buy stuff. They don't even want cars anymore, which I find amazing. But that money is going into experiences. So all we have to do is stay ahead of the curve, and we win. Yeah, big time.
And for me, the most freeing thing is, and again, we're both dealing with the sort of multiple users, so the shared experience is very important. I think one of the challenges for in-home VR right now is that you're sort of invisible, disembodied hands, and you're alone. And you bump into your furniture because you need space to do it properly, I think, as well. I think if you untether people, let them, again, have full body presence, roam around in a space, you can create unbelievable, fantastical worlds. And for me, this was the most freeing thing in the world. Yeah. We were talking about this earlier, what you can create in a week for very little money as far as what people can step into, massive worlds that just, as far as, since you're taking over eyes and ears and full body sensations, people believe they're there. You're completely convinced, especially your amygdala, right? You can't fool it. And people are like, I know I'm on a flat floor, and yet I feel like I'm going to fall to my death because it looks like I'm stepping on, Indiana Jones like stepping stones. It's fantastic to watch this. And you think about what that would take to do in the physical world and what we did for a long, long time. It's so freeing to think anything we want to do.
Right.
And as long as you do things that people are, aspire to. And the one area that I think is interesting that I'd love to talk to you about is, for a long time, the VR space has been sort of first-person shooter and sort of strictly very, very game-oriented. And I don't think...
Zombies need to be killed.
Zombies do need to be killed.
But anyway.
But, let's face it, even if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, you know that zombies are sort of like the weather. It's actually the soap opera and other things that are going on that's really interesting, right? And now I think we completely have the ability with the shared experience that you can have in these worlds and the ability to create so quickly and convincingly these environments. You can begin to really let people step into stories in a way that even at the unbelievable, Imagineering Disney company with a treasury beyond belief and, a edict to do the most creative things you possibly can, it's really hard to let individuals get together and have very personalized experiences in incredible environments that they can impact. It's just, the park model is tough.
And what do amusement parks do really well? G-forces. And so one of the things that VR really needs, or we kind of like to have, is G-forces at the right time in the right place. That's why the VR coaster, Mack Ride's VR coaster, if you haven't been on one, oh my God, it's really good. And the reason is they've been able to coordinate the G-forces of the roller coaster into the construct. When you're on you're on a roller coaster, but all of a sudden you're on the back of a dragon and you can feel the wings going. That's cool.
That's really cool.
It has to be cool, And so the issue I think that the amusement park has to deal with more than anything else is just how do you run it economically?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of really ugly things about VR that, if not fixed or not dealt with, one's throughput, another one is cleanliness. Do you really want to have an outbreak of pink eye from your park and, all that kind of stuff?
Mostly not.
Most not. And, not to disparage amusement park employees, but you basically have got the situation where you're using people that are really good at selling popcorn at a movie theater running your company. And so it has to be absolute idiot-proof. Not that those people are idiots, but they might be. And so...
got to shoot for that Starbucks barista model.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Or Apple Store.
And what we really want to be able to do is have a system that is good and easy and robust and has enough throughput that everybody can make money. Amusement park needs to make money. The customer has to get a good experience for a fair price, and we need to become world dominant as a company.
Small goals.
But when I say world domination, I'm very happy to provide technology and help for you guys. And I've always wanted you to be one of my minions.
You never know. So,
no, but or I can become your minion.
Partners.
That could work.
So the way the strategy we have at Dreamscape is we're hardware agnostic for a lot of reasons, because there's very brilliant people like yourself out there who are going to solve a lot of these problems, and
it's moving very quickly.
It's moving unbelievably quickly.
The stuff that we have is going to be different a year from now than what we're doing right now.
Completely. And what excites us is, again, Walter Parks, for those who aren't familiar with Walter, he wrote War Games when he was a screenwriter in Sneakers. And then later on, he and his wife ran DreamWorks for the first 12 years. He's a mega movie producer. I think he has like $7 billion worth of box office to his name in producing credits. Really creative, adaptive guy. One of the reasons I joined Dreamscape is because I know there's great people doing technology. I said I'm interested in storytelling, and that's what always appealed to me about Imagineering and Disney is the attention to that. And Walter is in the same place as I am on that. So we're super excited about the fact that we always use an expression at Disney, which was the technology behind the magic. You don't want to focus. You don't want people thinking about technology. And right now, it's a little bit. You put the thing on. It's just okay. It's kind of like gearing up to go scuba diving. But at the end, when they're taking it off, if they're not even thinking about it and they're just talking about their experience, you won.
Right.
For us, though, it's putting in addition to the game mechanics, which are super important in this, it's putting in the awe, the wonder, the aspirational moments into what typically are going to be brief, sort of short experiences, not in the theme park model, but 8 to 10, 12-minute kind of experiences right now. It's sort of enough. It's so intense when you're in these worlds. To offer those up, I use Soarin' as a great example of an attraction that is, wherever we put that in the world as Disney, it's a huge demographic that loves it. Pretty much everybody who can ride that is in love with that because the original one, quite frankly, when you think about it, was the jump cut was sort of to us was sort of like, well, we kind of that could have been better and was improved in the world one, but no one cared because it was just a sense of flying, and that aspirational moment of flying. And when you combine that with the game, so I think VR sweet spot's going to be game mechanics, combined with theme park attraction, the knowledge we have about the best kinds of experiences you do for people in theme park attractions, with cinematic storytelling. And what's fun right now is we're kind of in that Lumiere Brothers phase of inventing what is the language when people are in these worlds. And we don't really know. What is a dissolve? What is a crosscut? What is a reverse angle? How does that work in there in order for us to give a completely satisfying arc of an experience in 8 to 10 minutes, when you've stepped into this world.
Well, see, one of the things with our company, we believe that we can be in 100% of the amusement parks within 2 years, and that will be necessary because if you really look at some of the broad strokes, amusement parks at one time were sort of a summer kind of environment that pretty much closed down from Labor Day to Memorial Day. But now, with the Halloween and, going to Europark at Christmas and having a ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a real head scratcher because, the weather wasn't wonderful. Germany in December is not a giggle. No, it is. I don't want to be disparaging, but the amusement park was wonderful. It was all dressed up. But what is the nature of the amusement park? CapEx on top of CapEx, labeled in with way too much labor. Okay, isn't that our economic model? And what VR is going to give us is the ability to touch a button. And all of a sudden, our summer attraction is now Halloween. Yep. And not just that. It's Halloween that we can G-rate it at kids up to 8, and then we can make it a little more scarier for mom and dad, and then we can put a really adrenaline-bumping 21-year-old male nightmare in front of them.
In the same space.
Yep. And then come Christmas, we can have a Christmas experience. We can have a Winter Wonderland experience. We can have a Kwanzaa and a Hanukkah experience.
Yep.
Boom, 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 boom. Have it your way.
Yeah, it is incredible that way, and it's hard to believe. And that's why I say the freedom that comes from working in this medium is so amazing because you sort of wake up and go, it really is. If you can dream it, you can do it in this medium. Our strategy isn't theme parks to begin with. We're going to malls, as most of you probably know. Destination retail.
You'll get mauled.
Destination retail is suffering. I think last year 38% of all sales for around the holidays was online, which is a huge number. And so the key mall operators that we've talked to, and we've talked to all the big ones, are moving their premium sites to be more entertainment than retail over time. And retailers are also looking at new ways to sort of leverage, and VR is great for you to experience products and things like this. I do think, look, we know people want to leave the home and do shared experiences. You want to go out and do stuff. This is why Chuck E. Cheese, bowling, going to the movies. And yet, a lot of those things that used to work, like the movies, you can have a great experience at home. And by the way, there's a lot on Netflix and Amazon that are better to see at home and, and a little more serialized and this kind of stuff. So you have all these great destinations with built-in infrastructure. They've got the parking, they've got the bathrooms, they've got the food, they've got other things to do. And they're hungry for a reason to have people visit. And so our strategy is to go in and basically do what we're calling the VR multiplex. It's a little confusing to some people because they think, oh, I'm going to sit down like in a multiplex opponent. It's like, no, you're actually walking around in a space and having a shared experience with friends. But we're going to have that model of multiple theaters with different titles, and we're going to even do serialized titles. You're going to be in a story, and when it ends, it's going to be, part 2 coming in a month. Come back and see where your journey continues. And I think it's going to be really compelling.
I think it's going to be fun. And both Bruce and I sort of decided, well, we think we agree, right?
Sure.
That Ready Player One
Oh, yeah.
is going to be the starting gun for this whole thing. Because if you were to do a survey of your typical customer, I'd say that 80% think they know what VR is, but have never really experienced it. That they're really stupid about it. And that I think Ready Player One is going to be that magic moment where all of a sudden everybody is both educated in VR and curious.
Yeah.
And we're going to be there to catch them and monetize them.
And this is, so Steven Spielberg, this is his next movie. Steven is an investor and actually very creatively involved. In fact, he said the other day, it was about 2 weeks ago when he was in town, the VR experiences he's having now, and when he went through a demo we created, he said, okay, I haven't been this excited since I first saw the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park. And it literally is that way. And you're seeing this. I agree. I think, everybody read that book, Ready Player One? I hope, if you haven't, you should. It's and in the hands of Steven Spielberg, who has a pretty good sense of how to sort of pluck that pop culture string and get everybody vibrating in harmony.
Oh, I remember there was a cartridge from the Atari called E.T.
There you go.
That's a contra-example, and I shouldn't be that snooty.
Buried out here. But it's I agree with you. I think it's just there's going to be this moment where suddenly, and right now you're seeing it, even things that are out there. There's a couple of things in France. I think it's called MK2. There's the IMAX Center. These aren't the most exciting versions per se, but they are exposing people to VR.
Yeah.
And that's sort of doing the Lord's work of getting people exposed. And I think that this location-based stuff, theme park stuff, is the tip of the spear for really pushing this over for the entertainment space. VR in other industries is already taking off because it's super obvious. If you're designing anything, if you're doing maintenance on anything, if you're military, if you're medical, this is why you can you really see a lot of progress being made on all of the different components of VR.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money in those spaces, but entertainment, this in Ready Player One, it kind of becomes a drug. And I can tell you now that I've been doing my job for about 5 months. Especially with the news being what it is these days, I often long to step back into this fantasy world, and just put on the things and say, okay, I'm in some other place. It's really great. It's beautiful. And if I want to change it, I just tell the guys, and 2 hours later, it's something new. And it's a pretty compelling experience.
Well, I'd like to say that there's going to be a whole new level of virtual reality when we get self-driving cars, and
that's pretty cool.
There's no need to have windshields that you can see through. Those can all be screens so that you look out and all of a sudden you're driving on the surface of Mars, or you're driving down Deadwood.
Now that I commute to Santa Monica, I need that.
Yeah, on the way to work. And that's going to be an interesting thing, because you get to work and you realize that you've been in a stagecoach and it's been holed up, and it's been a hell of an experience.
But this is why I think it's not crazy to think there can be this sort of abstraction of what is the theme park, because you can begin to access those same kinds of immersive experiences and the same feelings. And again, as long as it's shared, which is one of the issues with the home thing right now, but if it's shared, it really feeds that same emotional need, I think, for escapism. And I was.
But one of the things you're always going to get in an amusement park is you can get G-forces.
You can get G-forces. You're absolutely right.
And I believe that.
Just put it in a Tesla.
Well, people say, well, why would somebody want to be in VR on a roller coaster? I said, well, all the experience, but is really looking at the back of the guy's head in front of you that interesting? No, and you can look at almost any other amusement ride, and what you're looking at, except for some of the reasons like soaring and stuff like that, but a typical steel ride is not that interesting visually. No. And we are used to having massive visual input.
And it's hard to make them interesting visually. In fact, Space Mountain.
And great sound. Great sound.
Yep. That's one of the things you learn too, is how important sound is to this whole medium.
And smell. No, remember,
smell,
remember smell-o-vision? Oh boy. Anybody who ever tried that, after a while, after about 6 months of a smell-o-vision experience, the whole theater smelled like an outhouse. That was a real big mistake. Oh well. The problem with living a long time is you remember really a lot of crappy stuff.
It's good for having a good memory.
Well, no, and the trick is to live a long time, see a lot of crappy stuff, and maintain enthusiasm.
Yep. When we were talking out in the hall a little earlier, you mentioned having lived a long time and done a lot of things, that you obviously have created some brilliant games, but you also said you had some that were real stinkers. And
I've created some of the worst games you could ever possibly that you never want to play.
And I asked him, well, why? Why did that happen? If you clearly know how to make great games, why did those happen? I thought your answer was really relevant to anybody who wants to sort of think about this medium.
The trick is, when you're designing a game, you intrinsically know the rules. But when you have people coming in, getting the steps where you train them without without it being arduous. I mean, there are so many board games that you see a manual like that and you say, not for me, cowboy. I've been, I've actually got a life. And there's a whole set of video games right now that have such a steep learning curve that they are not getting new users, that they're producing for the choir, not the congregation.
That's right.
And so these resets that we have to do all the time to get new people in. I mean, think about Minecraft. What a magical world that is. But if you look at the actual new users of Warcraft, ho-hum,
right.
Not that good. And
right.
so the amusement park doesn't have that problem because you have that problem in spades because you have to get people up the learning curve, if there's a learning curve, literally in a half a minute.
Yeah, and that's what good design is, right? You hone right in on what's intuitive, and trust me, even our experiments we've done so far in the last 6 or 7 months, there's things that because you know the rules, you're like, this is gonna be so easy. We had a narrator say, find the sacred torch or whatever, and people just wander around and there's the things right in front of them, and you're like, okay, right. I have to make it glow, it has to flash, it has to jump up and down.
Didn't look like a magic torch to me.
One person's magic torch is, it's like, well, a lot of people don't even know. It's interesting. We've had a few different scenarios, and one was great. We had a father and a son, and the son was right around 19. He knew exactly what to do. He just gets in that world. And the dad literally didn't move for the first 30 seconds. We're like, you can walk. He's like, oh, I'm supposed to walk? It's like, yeah. And it was, but by the end it was great because the son began to help his dad. And then about halfway through the experience, about 5 minutes into it, the son was trying to help the dad again. He was like, I got this. I got this. Let me do it now. And so it was really fun to watch. But you're right. If it's not intuitive, it just turns into a sense of feeling lost.
Right. And People in amusements don't want to feel stupid. It's not our job to make you feel stupid.
No.
We want to create our environment so everybody feels like they're a genius.
Right.
You know, and you know, it's so funny. I'd have engineers and they'd be designing a game and that sort of thing, and they'd say, "This will get them," and I said, "You know,
they'll never figure this out."
Do you? These are our customers. Do you really want them to feel gotten? And you know, I said, you know, it's okay for them to win. You know, it's okay. It's you know, we're not giving them big prizes. You know, let's make it easy. Let's make them feel smart and do all kinds of really good stuff like that.
Have you seen?
You know,
is there any VR out there that you've seen that you felt was really compelling and sort of on?
Everything that we've done.
I mean, other than what Modal.
Well, you know, and you know, and I say that.
I did the Pong.
I say that without anything, and besides, my grandson is the cutest baby I've ever seen. But that's another story, and I'm not biased. But the guys, as a joke, made a Pong game in VR, in which literally you're doing this back and forth as the paddle. It's hilarious. I've never had so much fun. And you get out, and we've had probably 2,000 people through the thing, and everybody's got a big smile. It's Pong. And I did it because in a speech I said, we're at the Pong phase of virtual reality. And they said, oh, okay, we got to do a Pong game. We're actually going to be marketing it. You know, as one of our things, you know.
You had the demo at X Prize, and I actually tried it out, and it was the first time I left the VR experience sweating.
Yeah.
But I totally crushed. The guy was like, gone. I was like, you didn't get a point.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. And we're going to do a 4-player. Where you and your wife can be on one side of the net and the other people, so that you can be a team instead of an adversary.
There you go.
Huh?
Might work.
Twice the throughput. Not that I'm thinking that.
More tickets. I recently saw, and this is an in-home kind of Vive experience, but Jon Favreau, has anybody done I think it's called Goblins and Gnomes, a group called Weaver put it together. It was the first time that I went into a VR experience and really felt it could be charming. And anybody who hasn't done this, you can download it off of Steam or whatever. And if you have access to a Vive system. And again, you're still disembodied hands, which is weird to me, but you're in this charming little gnome world that looks like something you would see at Disneyland and Fantasyland or something. And it's really cute. You just sort of explore, you open doors, and and you hear these little guys running around. You don't really see them, and eventually you figure out very quickly, because it's very intuitive, there's like a peach, and there's some acorns. And you figure, oh, what if I pick one of these up and sort of offer it, and the little guys will come out and sort of befriend you. And once you learn to give him the peach, which you do pretty quickly, he rings a bell, and you shrink down to the size of the gnome, and then you get to explore their world.
How fun!
It was really cool, and it was like being in a really beautifully built theme park attraction, and it was nothing other than discovery, exploration, and charming, and an interaction with very limited AI, but it was convincing enough, and it felt like you were sort of, it was almost like you and a puppy in this world. It was really amazing.
Well, I shouldn't have done that.
Is that Jon Favreau?
Sorry about that. Well, there's so many interesting IP that need to be done in VR, like My Little Pony, bringing color to the world. Oh my, we all know that a black and white world isn't nearly as cool as a colorful world, and therefore, if you can bring color to the world, that's a good thing. And virtually, we can redo the whole damn world that we've ever thought of, but in a better way.
Should we throw out some questions?
Yeah, let's do some questions.
Anybody have? Okay, we got one here.
Well, and I'm Chris Blasey from Proof, previous house in Hollywood, and feel like I'm working / reborn in VR like you guys. So as many of us middle-aged guys who have an animation visual effects background are. So I wanted to ask, a lot of the guys that I know in the space lived through VR in the mid-90s, and the promise then obviously fell on its face because the tech wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. Many of them matriculated to 3D television because that was going to be the next big thing. That fell out in the mid-2000s. And they now, it feels like to me, I call them collectively the get off my lawn VR guys. And they seem to want to not risk it, and they want to monetize right away. They don't want to miss the boat. So my question to you is how much do you feel like the drive to monetize quickly is stifling potential innovation in the space?
Well, for me, it's about money. I like, you can either be, profit is evil, and if you feel that way, you really should leave this existence. But because making a profit is the world's way of voting alike. If you can't make money, people aren't really liking it. And so I just love to have people saying, yeah, I want to buy your product because I love it and I think it's good because, and I'm going to do my part by putting most of the money back in to doing more cool stuff. But I think that my goal is never to stifle innovation. And I don't think that a rush to monetization stifles innovation. In fact, the wonderful thing about the world right now is that the costs can be so low that innovation can be whatever you need it to be. Really, really, really cheap compared to anything else. The Pong game was coded up in 4 hours. That's about as good as you can get. And I believe that in its lifetime, it'll monetize to several $million. Just a piece of crappy software like that. But it was a brilliant idea. Yeah. And I think that, there's always this talk about how Hollywood budgets are sequels and all that sort of stuff. But if you really look at it, the Hollywood model is kind of broken because today you can do a blockbuster movie using your cell phone and 3 neighbors, but it's all about leveraging IP, leveraging your ideas, and so I actually think the trend is towards democratization of ideas as opposed to the stifling.
Yeah, and I agree. I want to make things that people want to pay for. I couldn't agree more. And I do think it's the right vote. For me, there's nothing more satisfying than when someone makes an entertainment thing that I'm happy to turn over. I was happy George Lucas became a billionaire. I was like, thank you for, thank you for creating all that great content and allowing me to sort of dream and escape. And so I actually think it's a healthy way to sort of march forward and continue. And I'm with you. What you don't want to do is not turn it back onto the innovation side of things and the art side of things. You need to continue to enable that, and that's something clearly Walt Disney knew in spades, the guy who bet the farm every time he turned around on innovation and creativity and trying and anticipating where can we take people next? How can we take them further into stuff? I think it's all part of the fun. For me, I think the fact that you put something out there and people want to pay for it is the validation you're looking for, and you want them to say, like I went to Sleep No More. How many people have gone to Sleep No More in New York City? And my first reaction, I was very skeptical. I've done these sort of interactive theater things before, and I went on the recommendation of some smart people that I trust, and so I actually went. And I had to fly back to New York so many times because I didn't just recommend it to people. I said, I want to go back, pay a lot of money, but I want to be there with you when you do it.
Yeah.
I don't want just to say, go do it. I actually said, don't go without me. I'll fly back to New York. I'll buy the $100 and whatever dollar ticket. You know what I mean? I'll eat on the restaurant up top, whatever, because it's a really cool thing to do. Happy that they're making money, and I think when I turn over that money, that I'm actually fueling their engine to do something else really cool.
And when you see somebody else do something really fun, like Sleep No More, I agree with you.
Great.
I mean, the Macbeth thing is kind of
who cares?
that,
I didn't even figure that out. I was like,
it is. Never mind. That Sleep No More is a good idea. The Macbeth thing isn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
Luckily non-consequential.
I came home and I immediately designed an immersive musical. Now, get this, it's Pong the musical.
I hear the sound of it.
There's a thread here, huh?
Yes,
Well, it's a story about the square ball that wants to get round so he can get girls. It's the hero's journey, and it's great fun. Anyway.
I'll do it. Another question.
First of all, I hated Sleep No More. Very uncomfortable experience, but that's just me.
Well, you have to take your mask off and be one of the actors. Just ad lib.
Yeah, I hung out in the lounge all night, so that was beautiful. So, talk to us about the shared experience and how you see the development moving and how quickly that might come to happen. I mean, obviously, memories are only as good as the person you share them with.
Yeah.
On some level, and that's what we're trying to strive here is this shared group experience. But in the VR world, we all know what the challenges are. But tell me about your vision of the shared experience and how that might develop into avatars or whatever you think the future is.
Well, for I'll go first. Dreamscape, the way we're using an expensive tracking system, Vicon, so it's a full-on, professional tracking system, and we're using sparse tracking, so head, hands, feet, to build you a full avatar, sim body. So when you're in there, it's your hands, it's your feet, it's you see your friend, and by the way, you can design yourself much like in Ready Player One, and people love to sort of, it's interesting to see how people design themselves, shall I say that, and what they pick, and they want to see a mirror in the world so they can see themselves and say, oh, look, I look cool, and it's completely shared, and we have imperceptible latency. So in our current demo, you can do all sorts of experiences. We have it's a stick that looks like a virtual torch. It's a torch in the world, all the obvious lighting and things. You literally toss this back and forth as part of the game mechanics to move on to a different world and catch it. In sports, we're literally tracking real basketballs in the virtual world. You see it virtually. Someone passes as fast as they want, you catch it. And so our ability to put people in and literally, that quote is even though you're now this sim and the whole world is just whatever the heck, we imagine it to be, you engage with that exactly as you do in this world. You use your hand, there's no controller. When you put your foot down, you see a virtual foot go exactly where your foot is. And we have the ability to take, I call it the sort of VR GoPro, but we've made a device you can go in and take pictures in that world, take selfies in that world, and it's a view in the virtual world. So all those tools for the storytellers are very powerful because you don't think, the limitations are different. The limitations are let's make it intuitive. Let's not have people be lost because it is so new. Let's not
have two people run into each other. Let's not blast.
Well, yeah. We talk about the sports. We had a soccer experience, and I kicked a real soccer ball towards a goal, and obviously it left the physical world into the virtual world, the real soccer ball, and I ran after it and quickly found the wall. I realized, said, okay, we have a little work to do on that. But you get so into it. Literally, it's like I knew the size of the room, but I had forgotten because I was in this thing. It was a giant stadium. It was the World Cup. I kicked this ball, and it bounced back, and I was like, I'm going to get it again. Bam. It's like, oh, shit.
And like the two-player Pong versus four-player Pong.
Yeah.
That is, in a sense, of something that you can do together. Now, when you're killing zombies, it's more fun when you have two or three of you as a team because you got to watch your back because those dirty, rotten zombies will climb up behind you. And
and I think in that,
scary. And so that creates some teamwork and some fun.
Exactly.
And you get a score as a team and as an individual, and that gives you replayability because people like to get higher scores and become cool and like yourself on Facebook and all that.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So, the ability to do better, the ability to compete and improve, to come back and level up or whatever it might be, it's pretty amazing when you're physically into it.
And the other thing that you can do that is really cool is you can handicap in the software so that people who are really klutzy can compete with people who are really capable.
Yeah, that's true.
And the klutzy people like it, the capable people don't like it, but they get enough jollies otherwise. Going.
Discounted tickets.
Hi, Chip Cleary from Europa Park and Mock Rides. Quick question. Bob Iger recently came out pretty negative about headsets and helmets, giving his vision of the future for Disney not in that realm. What's your thoughts on helmets and goggles and now and where we're going to go in the future?
Well, I think that helmets and goggles are important until we get wetware. And wetware, I think, is at least 30 years away, where we can actually jack in to our brain with a cortical shunt. And as a result, I think we're going to have headgear of some sort for quite a while. And hey, okay, I was going to try to figure out a nice way to say this, but a lot of people just don't get the future. I mean, I have been pushing the future and weird stuff all my life, and just because somebody happens to run a company doesn't mean they're smart. And see, that was that a nice way to say something? I'm trying really hard.
Yes.
But literally, I feel like my life has been engaged with trying to convince people with power and capability to not be stupid. And I'm telling you, it's pushing. It's a Sisyphean hole that you get the rock to the top of the mountain and it runs down, and it's not the other side. It usually runs down on top of you.
Yeah. So I believe, and if I remember the quote correctly, and again, not to take anything away from what you're saying, but I think I think actually the quote was, in a theme park. Now, if you've spent all this time, money, talent, and everything to create very rich environments, the notion that you would probably go AR, so something that you still see the world and then superimpose magical things, makes a lot of sense. What we're talking about, and this is why I think AR has a lot of great uses. It's probably going to be the future of computing more than anything else. It probably will have a life within beautifully rich built environments in some form. What I love about VR is that we do take hostage the key senses and you get total immersion. But it means you're going into the dumbest room possible. It's a theater, and this is theater more than it is anything else in many ways, theater and gaming, and you're, transporting people in what was basically, currently now we're going to move to a new facility, but currently now we're in a conference room as our main demo, and Eric Hirschberg from Activision came through, and he said, I've had a theme park sized experience in a conference room, and so that's where, but if you're in a built environment, if I was going through Adventureland, I wouldn't want to wear the thing. I'd want to have something else on. Can I go through a series of physical events that then I don something and it continues in some more magical way, and there's a reason that I'm putting on equipment, which there's a lot of reasons you could come up with that. Yeah, that'd be really cool. And would allow anybody who's designed these sort of experiences to take the handcuffs of building the physical environment, which has its place, and I think is cool, and if you can do part that in like a hybrid, and then move into a virtual part of the overall experience, you can have something really powerful, in my opinion.
One of the things that the amusement park business should think about is that what is the half-life of an amusement park? And every innovation has a half-life. And entertainment and amusement is about novelty. And how long does that novelty last? Now, I knew that Chuck E. Cheese was pretty okay because we got a new batch of kids about every 7 years, and so it was new to them.
Right.
But in the larger construct, what do amusement parks do really well? Well, when it comes to what you see, amusement parks get an A. This is my judgment. When it comes to what you do, they get a D, maybe an F. And today's entertainment seeker, I think, is looking for much more interactivity than they get. They don't want to be focused strictly on looky-loos. And so one of the things that VR gives you a chance to do is a lot more interactivity and a lot more personalized experiences, which I believe may be absolutely necessary for the survival of the amusement park business as a business.
Yeah, and what you're able to do is, you talk about memories. People remember how they feel more than anything else, right? So how did it make me feel? And the details sort of blur, especially as you get older, right? But you remember how you felt, and that's what you long for and why you return. And I know in VR, because you really are getting right into that lizard brain side of things, you're tapping directly into the feelings, and you can allow people to experience, again, I use the word aspirational kinds of things that they may never do. You said you can, handicap. Trust me, I'm terrible at football, but again, in our sports thing, I kicked a 50-yard field goal the other day, real football that I teed up and then kicked. Obviously, it went into a net or something. But because in the world, it continued seamlessly. The crowd went crazy, and I actually was like, "Holy crap, that felt great!" And it really was like I was, wow, and it's pretty cool to be a sports star. It's like being a rock star, and you actually feel it. And when I think about it now, it's like at some point I'll probably look back and think I really did that, in the real world because I've blurred my memory. But the feeling was very genuine.
You bring up a thing that I actually worry about, and that is, when does virtual reality become base reality? Indistinguishability. Like we're there at smell. We're pretty close to parity with sound.
Yep.
We're probably about 70% with visual.
Agreed.
Haptics are horrible.
Terrible.
Terrible everywhere. And what I think actually breaks it is food. Swallowing, masticating, because you've got smell and taste and texture and all that sort of stuff. If you can solve that, then we can have a whole bunch of people starve to death. No. But the whole idea is that if I can go into virtual reality and be a rock star and live in a penthouse at the top of a 100-story building, and I'm surrounded by wonderful people, and I've got the cutest girlfriend in the world.
And you look great, ripped.
And I'm ripped, and and that's my virtual reality life. Mm-hmm. Or I can go into actual reality, and I can become a fat barista at Starbucks. Where do I spend my time?
Ready Player One, right?
It's Ready Player One.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that's a little scary. But the other part that I look at is I say, okay, what is the real trajectory? Like at one time, laser tag was a $4 billion a year industry in the United States. $4 billion in a year, shooting laser beams and things. And so there's one thing, I'm sure you're looking at this, even if it becomes a $4 billion business for 4 or 5 years in virtual reality, no harm, no foul. I'm happy to do that.
I only need 1 year.
Particularly if we have world domination. We'll share it.
We're working yet. No, it's interesting. What else? We can take another one.
Right here.
Oh, there's a mic.
Hi, I'm totally on board with everything you're doing, and it sounds conceptually amazing. And one of the I was big into Atari. I love Chuck E. Cheese. I've been with you since the beginning. But and a side product of what you're doing is accessibility, because you're giving a chance for mobility challenged people to experience things that they may have never experienced before.
Yep.
I'm monocular. I can't experience anything you're doing. If I'm SOL, that's fine. I'll cry. I'll move on. I'll be okay. But has there been any consideration of visually impaired or visually challenged in what you're working on?
Tough space.
Tough question, but let me rephrase if I get you correctly. You're wondering how we can remediate some of the physical challenges that some people have to give them as full of experience as possible. I'm going to answer a slightly different question, in that I believe that we can do a tremendous amount of interesting things in virtual reality that can reprogram brains. Bibliography, The Brain That Changes Itself. It's really a treatise on the way you can reprogram the way you're thinking and the way your brain works and actually change your IQ and change your capability. I believe that we're just starting to be able to deal with some of the things that are toxic. For example, reprogramming people with post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, they've been able to reprogram people who have phantom limb pain.
Right.
And all this sort of stuff happens because we have so much computer control of what is in your brain, and with time, we can repurpose that brain. Whether you've had a stroke, whether you've had a physical injury, or whether you're just dumb as a post, we can fix that. And you're not allowed to say dumb anymore. You have to say they're a little slow, but that's actually wrong, because a lot of people are actually cognitively brilliant, but their clocks just run a little slower. And we've been doing some work in education for a while. And that's the other part. Yeah. Virtual reality, our brain was devolved when we were hunters and gatherers 35 million years ago. And it turns out that geopositioning is the way that our brains like to index things. And so if we create a VR environment where you're walking through the human body, you will remember the components, the bones, the muscles, the organs, much better than if you did it through any kind of other environment. Yep. Police training. Think about the muscle memory that's necessary for split-second decisions in a construct where microseconds matter. I think that we can do training in such a way that we can significantly improve outcomes. Safety training for an oil rig or a chemical factory. We can, the combination of AR and VR, we can put you into synthetic situations that are really, really important and save lives and fix things. I just love the fact that we can make a perfect world. Now, if we can just get all the shitheads into VR so we can fix them, that's the only thing that we have to worry about. And that's going to maybe be the hardest thing.
I know what Nolan's sending every executive for Christmas.
Oh, no. There's a lot of really good executives. It's just not a complete set.
Okay. I also think, there's ways, because audio is our sight is our weakest sense, right? We believe it the most, but it's our weakest sense, which is really kind of ironic. That's why illusionists, magicians, do so well. But audio is something, as the more you experiment with this world, you realize that audio and then anything reinforced with, the haptics that do work are the things you reach out and touch. I don't like body haptics. I agree. Vibrating things on my body aren't convincing. But when you reach out and you see something and then you actually sort of touch it, and obviously in the light, it could be the most base scrap of fur from Home Depot, whatever. But if it looked like a sleeping creature of some sort, or if it sounded like a sleeping creature in the dark, you would begin to imagine and picture it and fill in the gaps, and it's all that kind of primal survival stuff that does, it's basically
The lizard brain.
The lizard brain comes in, right? So I think there's a lot of room, and again, because you are mobile and walking around, or if you're, like you said, you have mobility challenge, you can deliver unbelievable experiences. I know I worked on the Aladdin VR attraction many, many years ago, probably 20, that went into Epcot for a while, and something we think about a lot at Dreamscape is how big a hit that was with people who were, had mobility challenges, and freeing it was. And again, you think about Avatar, Jim Cameron's movie, it's like these things are obvious. But I don't think there's anything that is limited. In fact, I'm with you. There's tons of opportunities to engage people, everybody in unique ways. And I think it's interesting too. We're starting to look at the health side of things. It is extraordinary what you can do, and what is going. I think more and more you're going to see the white papers come out and the evidence come out of how this is a whole way. They know that if you believe that you are looking at a beautiful scene in nature, if you believe that you're there, people heal faster.
Yeah.
So there's some merit to a hospital room with a beautiful view, and the more you believe it, the more you convince your subconscious and your brain that this is happening. They're seeing large evidence that people actually, the body heals faster and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot that can be done with this medium. I think with that,
We got the hook.
Gentlemen, what an awesome hour of your time. Thank you so much.
thank you.